look so pale?
I don't know because you hang out in the sun a lot.
It's all relative. Tail, stop being slow now. Load. This site can't be reached. Fuck off. Reload, bitch. Okay. We are live.
Okay. Let me know when we've shared. Oh, there we go. I got the email.
Okay. Not sure where that came from. I didn't share.
No, as soon as you go live, I've set it up to where anytime you go live on Twitch, I get an email from you
Oh,
from
okay.
Twitch.
All right. Huh.
I didn't do it, I swear.
Notice on my actual Twitch page, the little share buttons are all gone. There they are. It was displaying very strangely.
Well, I just noticed that on your Twitch page, it said when we go on it, it's for mature audiences only.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we swear and stuff, so gotta do that.
Well, fuck.
Okay. Now we're ready.
All right. I'm sharing everything right now. Give me a half a second here. Because because it is just so much easier to do it from my phone.
Mm.
Because changing accounts is a press of a button. So I don't know why it's so hard to do it, to change accounts via. All right, here we go. Okay. All right. We ready? As ready as we're going to be, huh?
Yep.
All right. Let me log back out of Facebook. Okay. For thus say the Lord, to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbath, who chooses the things that pleases me and hold fast my covenant, I give in my house and within my walls a memorial and a name better than my sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Isaiah 56, 3 through 5.
When all Americans are treated as equal, no matter who they are or whom they love, we are all more free. Barack Obama.
Beloved, let us love one another because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. 1 John 4, 7 through 8.
I hate the word homophobia. It's not a phobia. You're not scared. You're an asshole. Morgan Freeman. All of us who are openly gay are living and writing the history of our movement. We are no more and no less heroic than the suffragists and abolitionists of the 19th century, and the labor organizers, freedom riders, Stonewall demonstrators, and environmentalists of the 20th century. We are ordinary people living our lives and trying, as civil rights activist Dorothy Cotton said, to fix what ain't right in our society. Senator Tammy Baldwin. Let's talk about pride.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at Seth Roth II. You can also follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Like, share, subscribe, follow us. Also, give us a review because we are on iTunes and any other podcasters, and we do have a website. Give us a review that helps others find us. Also, to help me as always, today, Ember, the mistress of the time warp.
Hi there, I'm September, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12, and hear me on the Geek Grills and Trust Your Cape podcasts. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site. You can find that at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay. You can visit and help support us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to help us keep making this humble show. Now, you can also contribute with bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime by going to twitch.tv/9 of 12.
So, today we're going to be talking about pride. Now, we've talked about homosexuality in the past, and with that show, and that was our 4th show. So you can look that one up. But basically, that show was in representation of, hey, the Bible is saying this about homosexuality, but you have to understand it's not homosexuality they're talking about. It's about sex for temples, temples, having sex in temples to honor other gods other than the Jewish God. So that's what that mainly represents. Now, I also wanted to state real quick, the reason why the word eunuch is used is because eunuch was a catch-all term back in those times for those who were sexually different, that were either asexual or transgender or maybe gay, but they were not of the man-woman sexuality. And I wanted to read that because it states very clearly that if you are of that sexuality, and as long as you're, say you're a Christian and do the Christian thing, God will have a place for you as much honor as anybody else on the planet. And I feel that's extremely important to say, that God loves everyone and God respects everyone and God believes in love. And he wouldn't have created love if he didn't believe that people should love who they wanted to love. And I think that is important for Christians to understand, and for Christians who believe that to say that as much as possible.
I find it super interesting that you keep just using a male pronoun there, but that's fine.
What, for God? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know you don't, it's a royal he? Is that a thing?
It's okay. So, all right, to be fair, and if you see God in a womanly way, that's fine. I see God masculine. I see God as a father figure. So that's why I use the male pronoun. I'm not trying to exclude anyone else. If you see God in a different light, please be comfortable with the pronouns that you want to use. I also, to be fair, I'm not as embroiled or as entrenched in the LGBTQ community as others. So pronouns are something I struggle with, and I'm working on it. I have a niece, quote unquote, who is a friend of a daughter of a friend of mine, and she's non-binary, and so it's they and them is a struggle for me, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, even the most, prolific members of our community struggle with they and them sometimes because they're not used to using it that way.
Right.
I've seen, the whole grammar nerd people, of which I kind of align, even go off like, it's not proper. It's like, well, Actually, yeah, it could totally be used that way. It's just a matter of getting used to it.
Right. And I'm getting used to it and everything. And I do my best. And if I slip and I make mistakes, there are people that I've known prior to transition, and there will be times where I make a mistake and I slip up and I say the wrong pronoun. And then it's like a dawning instantaneous almost. It's like the words fall out of my mouth and go, oh, and then I'm profusely sorry because it's not intentional and it's not to hurt someone's feelings. I'm not what Ben Shapiro, that twerk, that little man. Oh, he makes me angry. Oh, that little tiny man. What is he,
Well, at least
12?
you're trying and you correct yourself, and I'm sure you apologize when needed, and that matters. And hopefully they take it well. And I mean, because it just hurts them,
I know.
and hopefully they can be gracious about it and understanding. And I think usually they are. Um, I am pretty good at it, but I misgendered a friend of a mutual friend of ours one time, and it took me a few minutes to realize it. Like I walked away, and it was weird because I've only ever known him as a man, but for
Right.
some reason it popped out. Like I think it was just something he was saying at the time. I identified with so strongly that I don't know, and I was just like, and I walked away. I was like, oh my god, I did not. I went back later. We were at a party, and I was like, I misgendered you, didn't I? I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, fuck. I'm sorry. I don't even know how the hell that happened because I just don't even. I've never even known him as a female, so I don't know how that happened. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us for sure.
And I mean, we all make mistakes and everything else. I mean, I've every derivative of my first name has been used, and and here's the thing: my real name's Daniel. My mother made it very clear that that was going to be my name. It wasn't going to be Dan or Danny. Now, in high school, I did go by Danny, and there are like 4 people that are still allowed to call me that. But I'm back to Daniel. But and so when people call me Dan or Danny, I just kind of go. So I feel that and I understand that. So that's what I play in my head to try to help me remember.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to do it because it is a self identifying factor that I relate to. I mean, September is my middle name. My first name is Valerie. I stopped going by it at one point in my life, and it was very transformative period for me where I was choosing how I will go. And I grew up some very unhappy things in my childhood that I wanted to leave behind. And Valerie is that scared little girl that I am not. And
Right.
I had people who knew me from my childhood and they'd be like, well, I knew you before, so I'm going to call you Val. No. No, you're not. If you're going to call me that, don't call me. It's the least bit of respect, but I demand it. It's how I
Mhm.
identify it myself. And every time the name is used, you're either a bill collector or you're recalling something from my past that I left behind. And it hurts.
So yeah, so
So it's
names are
dead naming, right? I mean,
right.
and I mean,
Well,
maybe I haven't
yeah,
gone through a gender transition, but I've gone through some serious transitions in my life, and the same respect is deserved and earned.
right. And I think if we those of us who are struggling, if we just kind of step back and think of how someone misused our name, mispronounced it, or shortened it, and we don't shorten it, or elongate it, and we don't like. I know friends. I have a friend of mine who is a Val. She goes only by Val. If you call her Valerie, she'll get very angry at you. You know, she's Val. That's what she goes by. And so to elongate it upsets her. So it's one of those situations where if you can think about it in that terms, that helps out a great deal with you staying focused on those moments and making sure not to misgender. Again, everybody makes mistakes, everybody slips up, especially like I said, if you've known someone who before they were changed, especially. And the reason I'm focusing on transgender for a few minutes because they really get a lot of shit. Um, but you know, but if before they're transitioning, you know, I've known them before that. There are sometimes I will make a mistake, and I do my best to correct it as quickly and soon as possible. I am not perfect. I am a human being, so you know I do my best, and I'm getting much better at it. It's starting to work better in my brain, to where I can associate quicker. Because I don't deal well with change to begin with. I mean, you know, I'm a Christian. We don't change. We don't. We, we've been
Okay.
reading this. We've been reading the same book for over 2,000 years. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, well, change is a little slow for us sometimes. But no, I am working on that. The other reason I wanted to be on transgender is I have an issue. I'm a feminist by nature, or I've grown into feminism. And I sometimes September will say that I'm a little too, I need to, I need to step back for a second, you know. But one thing that that I'm going a little too off the deep end there, like, but baby, you're right.
Some people just really enjoy being outraged. You are one,
I,
in my opinion.
I'm all. That's why that scene in the Avengers will always be close to my heart. My secret is I'm always angry. But I have an issue with TERFs. I don't know what TERFs mean as far as what the acronym is, but basically it is women who are feminists but don't believe transgender women are women or should be in the feminist movement. And I've got something to say about that.
Okay.
No,
Do you want to know what the acronym is first?
yes, I do. Please.
Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist.
Okay, trans. Okay, all right. So I have something to say. As someone who has watched feminist movements and has read about the history of feminist movements and about how women are treated in our society as gender in general, how can you feel that these women are not should not be included in feminism? Because if these women were to step back and say, "Oh yeah, let me join that group that is always sexually harassed and get lower pay," yeah, that's the group for me. No one would choose. No one chooses to join a, especially if you're a white male and it's like, "Hey, let me become a female because that's just the better life for me." How dare you think that? How dare you think that these women aren't women? They're already having to fight a battle because they are transgender. They are still women.
Yeah. And I think it's crazy and I think it's wrong. I think it stems from the same, I mean, they don't want, and it's ironic that TERF is the acronym, although spelled differently than TERF with a U.
Right?
Because I feel like they think that those are men trying to get in on our turf, right? Like they're reclaiming feminine traits as strengths, not weaknesses, and then they feel threatened unnecessarily by transgender women. And I think that's where their head's at, though. But
Well,
there's
that's
room for
just
all of us.
well, and more importantly, that's just silly. Again, why would these men just? Why would these men who are transitioning to women want to actively choose to be put down and sexually harassed, and they're already having like I said, they already have enough problems. They already have, you know, the amount of violence towards transgender women is just through the roof as far as statistics are concerned. And but they're also being going to be women who are not exactly, oh, I don't know, treated fairly and justly, and you feel that they don't deserve that protection. They're not taking anything away from you. they're there to help you, and you should be there to help them. And I don't understand the turf mentality. There was a young lady that I used to follow on YouTube. Her name was Lacey Green, and Lacey Green was a sex positive woman who taught about sex positive and was a feminist and all this kind of stuff. And then she started hanging out with red pillars.
Mm.
And she lost everything because I mean, it was like a 180. She was inclusive. She was inclusive to any genders and all this stuff. And by the end of it, she had put out videos saying there's only two genders. And, she was very turfish. And I'm just going, wow, how could one person, I mean, obviously she didn't want to be famous anymore because she destroyed her entire career and just blew her as she doesn't have a YouTube following anymore. She barely has a Twitter following anymore. And, if you don't like transgender women, fine, don't hang out with them. You don't have to go and party with them or whatever, but they are women. And that's the end of that discussion. And if you have a problem with that, maybe you should look and see why you're a feminist to begin with.
Absolutely.
All right.
Did you see the thing, speaking of that, accusing J.K. Rowling of being a TERF today?
Mm-mm. I did not.
Yeah, and the thing is, it comes from Medium, and their coverage is a little shaky. So I read the article, and it's based on the fact that she liked some posts from TERFs some time ago, and then she was like, no, senior moment, I didn't mean to do that. But then I guess yesterday or recently, she followed some TERF group, and this whole article is like, well, you see, now we can safely assume that her beliefs are aligned with these hateful people. I'm like, well, no. I mean, that's kind of shaky to me. I have followed nasty, hateful people to keep an eye on them. J.K. Rowling hasn't directly said anything to the effect of any of these, and her writing has showed inclusivity of other groups. So I found it a little circumstantial, and I tweeted at J.K. Rowling with a link to this article asking her to clarify. And I hadn't heard anything back. So I just went to look at my Twitter, and the post is gone. So
your post?
My post. I screenshotted it earlier and sent it to my friend, like, hey, look, I'm tweeting. I'm just going to ask her. Because that's how I am. I'll ask her. And I made a copy. I screenshotted and sent the post. And I just checked, because we were talking about this, to see if I got any replies. And the post isn't even there. Okay, that's a little weird.
That's yeah.
I'll have to do it again. That's all.
Yeah.
And I will. And I want to know.
Okay.
That would be sad. Because this was like a transgender friend of mine who's like, this is why I'm not playing the Harry Potter game. I'm like, wait, what?
I'm not playing the Harry Potter game because I can't do it. I can't do the spells. None of them. I've tried. I tried it. I don't like it. But that's another story.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There has been, as far as seeing we're on J.K. Rowling, there's another YouTuber I follow. It's basically the channel is Council of Geeks, and he comes on, and he's fluid. So sometimes he comes on as his female side, and sometimes he comes, and when he's doing Council of Geeks, he's mostly his male side. But he comes on, and basically the last two movies that came out, which he has a heavy hand in, he feels is very gay baiting because it's not, it's hinting, or it's basically, it's not direct enough. And this is not just his vocal point. I've seen several gay sites and stuff talk about this, how the relationship between Griswold or what's the name of Johnny Depp's character?
I don't know.
Anyways,
What?
and the Harry Potter and the Fantastic
Oh
Beasts,
yeah, that one. I don't remember. Grimwold. Yeah.
Grimwald, how Grimwald and really, Daniel, you're having a senior moment now, and Dumbledore had a relationship. I know. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've read the books. I'm sorry, or seen the movies. Anyways, that so they feel that it's that she's just giving a little hint just so that the gay community will be happy. I mean, not every piece of work has to have gay in it, and that's okay. Um, but if you're going to have it, is what they're basically saying. If you don't want them to be gay, that's perfectly fine. But if you want them to be gay, let them be gay. Don't just tease at this so that we will eat at some crumbs that you provide to us, is how one person put it. Have you seen the movies? What is your take on that whole situation?
I think it's no use to argue and try to get it normalized. I think people go too far.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just forcing representation isn't what we're after. we're after equal. It's not maybe too much to look at the percentages of the population and expect that much, but certainly black and brown folks are looking for that representation everywhere. So we have a long way to go with all of it. Yeah. But to get upset when someone's consciously doing it, why? Why would you do that? Because you're afraid? Because they're taking up an activist flag you didn't?
Well, it's like there was a little bit of a ripple for an in-game. I'm not giving spoilers. It's been a while.
It's past spoilers, yeah.
But there's a scene where Captain America is doing the support group, and one of the guys in the support group is talking about how he went on a date with this lovely guy and everything, and everything else. And it's like, and admitting they could have probably handled it a bit better as far as the Russo brothers are concerned, but they basically trumpeted first openly gay character in the Marvel universe. Okay, fine, but it's not a main character. It's a support. It's not even a supporting character. It was a scene with a gay character in it. It's a little different.
What are they gonna do? Rewrite known characters to do it? That would have been way more forced. I loved the way they handled that. I found it very touching that, because I mean, basically what you were looking at in Endgame was kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario almost, and the heroes were like doing their best to just get by in the world, and Captain freaking America being basically in like support group propping people up, and him just that guy talking about his boyfriend being, or his husband or whatever it was, just being so he wasn't shocked. It was normal. He didn't react to it. He didn't make a big deal. It was just went on with the conversation. That's how we want people to be treated.
Well, no, I get that.
And Captain America was just totally neutral, fine with it. Like Rob likes to say, my husband, he's like, I'm not an ally or whatever. He's like, it's LGBTQ. I don't care. Like,
and I'm an ally because I know that there's people that need support, but I also like, okay, so are you two consenting adults? Then I'm perfectly okay.
Yeah.
So that's that. I have no issues with any of it.
That's none of my business.
Yeah, whatever. You don't need to know what I do in my bedroom alone, but you still don't need to know. So it's like, like, and I don't need to know what you do in your bedroom. As long as you're consenting adults and everything is above board, I don't care. I don't. But see, and my thing, but they were talking about some of the groups and the ripples that happened is that, oh, it's not that big of a deal because it's just some random character. It's like, well, it sort of is a big deal. I understand your purpose. Don't get me wrong. I would have, I would have bounced up and down for joy if Miss Marvel had taken uh, her friend from the Air Force, and when they showed up and just gave her a big kiss, I would have jumped for joy because Carol Danvers in this role here, I honestly feel would be the best representation. And it's not rewriting much, to be fair. So I would have been okay with that. I would have been perfectly okay with that. They didn't. That's fine. That's their decision. That that being said, I also, you know, I want to point out Captain America is from the 1940s, and
Right? If he can get a grip.
yeah, if he could go like, okay, I mean, it didn't faze him at all, and it was amazing to see the caring in his face and everything as he's talking to them and telling them, hey, that's great that you're moving on, and I know it's really hard, and everything, but and they talked about, so he broke down, and then someone asked, well, when did you break down? And he's like, during the soup, between the soup and salad portions of our meal. And it's like, and Captain America understood, and he was there. It's like, because you've lost people,
Yeah.
and but he was loving this person because they were a human being. It didn't
And can
matter
we
who they were.
say in real life what an awesome dude Chris Evans has turned out to be?
Oh, I know.
Follow him on Twitter if you aren't, folks. He's pretty great. He's taken this administration to task. Yeah.
Oh, what I love to watch is when he's at some award ceremony and some lady is walking down and needing. He is somehow always positioned to where he can help the. It's like 2 or 3 times now he's done this, where he's helped them up the stairs because they're in these really expensive, long, beautiful gowns, and for some reason the Academy still feels they should have to climb stairs. Yeah, I'm like, do you know what kind of heels these women have on? Assholes. But he's there and he helps them up each time, and he's an amazing human being.
Dude, it's just how stages are. They're above people for visibility reasons.
No, I mean, that's fine, but you can build. Look, I'm a wrestling fan. Do you know that they don't use stairs? They use ramps. You just build a ramp. It's not that hard.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So let's talk about something that we both found and we're both like, wow, that's kind of cool. So everybody remembers the Pulse nightclub and the tragedy that happened there. In 2016, when they had the memorial, and we'll be sharing the links for both of these. In 2016, when they did the memorial, a rainbow appeared over the Pulse nightclub. Jumped 3 years later to 2019. They had a 3-year memorial, and it happened again. And there was another rainbow.
That's pretty awesome.
Rainbows are a scientific thing that we can explain, but sometimes you just have to step back and see a sign for a sign. And if God is doing a rainbow over a gay nightclub, maybe we should take notice of that. And that there is going to be the symbol of the rainbow is that there's peace and that there's hope. And that's why the rainbow flag was used.
And that I will not smite you again, I promise. Like, well, why did we pick that up for a symbol?
Yeah. As Mel Brooks once says, you're Jewish, you're God's chosen people. And he's like, yeah, I wish that you'd choose us a little less. So yeah, I know that is actually, I apologize, that was not Mel Brooks. That was on Fiddler in the Roof. I apologize because I don't remember musicals, even the ones that I was in. So I apologize. So yeah, but that was a line from Fiddler on the Roof. Is like, I wish you choose this a little less. I'm sure the gay community kind of feels the same way, but the rainbow flag is, it's for peace and it's for love. I remember, for those of you who may be too young to remember this or weren't in the political sphere, there is this church called the Westboro Baptist Church that I'm bringing this up for the good part, but basically they would go to soldiers' funerals and holding up signs saying, your son or daughter is burning in hell because we allow gays. I'm not using the words they used on theirs. I'm using that gays are in our world because gays have not been exterminated. Your son or daughter is burning in hell. And so that's where they had these things where a bunch of bikers would go to these funerals and basically form a wall around not touching them or anything, but form a wall so that the mourners never saw a single sign. I bring that up because of the Pride House. About a year or so into this, a gentleman bought the house across the street and painted the house in the rainbow flag and put that God loves you, God loves everybody on it, and little signs and stuff, and would actively protest against this hateful church.
Yeah, they're pretty sickening.
And I think they're still doing it, but not nearly as much anymore. They're not. It's become background noise at this point because it was basically a family and like some crazy people that joined them, and I think it's basically a small, like, less than 50 people are a part of this church now. So, and they've had some problems. Problems is a bad term. They've had legal issues with their protesting and stuff like that.
They were so attention seeking. I mean, along with it, they would be hateful in their targeting, but they'd target, like, military funerals.
They were going to target Elizabeth Edwards' funeral.
They did.
And look, Elizabeth Edwards was already going through a lot. She passed away from a very horrible cancer, the same kind of cancer my mother had. And we also found out that her husband was skeezy. So. Mm-hmm. And I really liked John Edwards, but again, it's one of those things where you don't always know the person.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then they were going to protest her, and I saw like 60 or 70 motorcycles going up towards Raleigh to be the vanguard for that, to keep that church away from them. Because Elizabeth Edwards was a wonderful human being. But yeah, so, and we have Pride here in Charlotte in August. I still haven't figured out why we have to have it 2 months after Pride Month. I haven't figured that out, but I don't know. Somebody will tell me why. But
I've been told and I forgot. They have some kind of, it's a conflict with something else or something, and tourism and
yeah,
whatever.
But I also want to keep this in mind. 2020 Pride Week is normally either the third or fourth weekend in August. Guess what's going to be in between that here in Charlotte?
Oh no.
I want to see this happen.
Should be interesting.
Yeah. For those that don't know, here in Charlotte in 2020, we are going to be cursed with the RNC and their convention, which basically, because it's Trump, it's just going to be a big song and dance thing. There's not going to be any contesting or anything like that. So it's a big song and dance. It's a big giant.
He does have opponents.
Yeah. He does have an opponent?
Yep, 2, I think.
That's not. It's
What?
It's never happened. I'm trying to think if it's ever happened in U.S. history
Yeah,
that it's.
it usually doesn't go very far. We'll see how it pans out.
But yeah. So as it stands, typically when it's a second term election for the candidate, it's just a big giant commercial. But we'll also be having Pride Week either before or after that. I'm hoping before, so that the people flying in, the RNC that's flying in, will have to deal with the drag queens. But I also imagine that's going to put a lot more. I'm also figuring that's going to put a lot more focus on our Pride that year, next year. And I will not be surprised or shocked if there's not a couple of celebrities that show up. They may not be involved in anything, but they may be at the marches or something like that. I would put money on it. I don't know who. If I was, but if you were to nail me down, I bet at least Ellen Page because
Yeah,
because of everything.
we'll see.
Which, and speaking of that, I
I
love
mean, they
Ellen Page.
still. I find it. It's interesting you say it's like a big commercial. I mean, they still have to have their convention. It's how the business works.
No,
Delegates have to get together and cast their votes to nominate. It's party business. It's not,
I understand. I understand, and you were, and I because you were there for the second term of a Barack Obama, also here in Charlotte. So I understand. No, I get it that it's more than that. That there is actual party business that happens in that arena. Um, but as far as what we see at night on television, that's just going to be a big commercial.
Oh yeah,
That
but I mean, they don't show the business on TV during any of the conventions. Mostly, it's just, I mean, they show the final actual vote from the floor. Or announcing at least the nominees or the results. But there's a lot of other business that goes on at the convention that isn't televised because it's boring, and we're passing platform measures and stuff. They just show all the big speeches.
I like the platform, some of the platform stuff. I like seeing what the
Well, you
planks
should get
are.
involved with the local party. You can go to the SEC and see that all day long, twice a year. Governor Bill Weld of Massachusetts, by the way, has announced his candidacy back in April.
Okay,
So he does have an opponent.
he's a bit liberal for the Trump voters, but who knows? It depends on how much more screwed up things get in the next 18 months.
Man, he's
Anyways,
also got a
yeah,
bad dye job. What the hell is with the Republicans? Sorry.
I know. So one of the other things
They need more gay people in their life. That's what they need. Somebody would tell them, honey, you need some toner. All right.
oh, it's like someone mentioned that when they showed a picture of Trump at a formal affair when he was in England, and how horrible that outfit looked on him. He needed a gay man or a gay woman to go, who's letting you out of this room in that outfit? Because that's horrible.
Right.
Who hates you? Because it looked bad. It looked ill-fitting and everything else. And I'm just going, God.
Well, for someone with so much money, supposed money, other people's money, he has really poor taste. It's like really wasted on him.
Also,
In general.
he also eats New York style pizza with a knife and a fork.
Well, he eats steak well done with ketchup.
Okay, to be I don't eat it well done, but I do like my steak with a little ketchup. I a little. I also like it with Heinz 57, which is just fancy ketchup. I mean, to be fair, it is just fancy ketchup.
It's so strong, though. I mean, I like a little dab here and there, maybe, but it's so strong you can't taste the meat. Like, if it's a good cut, that's an awful thing to do to it.
Well, it's like if I'm eating skirt steak, then yeah, it's going to be ketchup. if or Heinz 57. But if I'm eating filet mignon, it's
Well,
going to be it's melted butter and that's it. You know, it's a little melted butter. I
yeah, but
actually,
if you're putting ketchup on skirt steak, you're doing it wrong. It was prepared wrong because it should have been marinated and made into something you cross cut like some really good Mexican food. You want some chimichurri on that. But anyway,
look, I ate it with eggs. Okay, we would fry it up. It would be like that or what
pan
was the
frying. All right.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Look,
gotta
it was
treat it.
for
You gotta treat
breakfast.
it right. Just the thing.
Yeah, it was for breakfast. I'm Southern. That's what we do.
It's the wrong cut for that. Anyway.
Well, it's either that or that really stringing stuff, but we use that for chicken fried steak. The kind of almost hamburger, but not quite
Cubed steak.
steak. Cube steak, yes.
Yes. That's good for Salisbury steak, country fried. Actually, you know what we do that with that at my house? The kids have taken to? Basically make fingers with it. Like steak fingers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but, but that is so off topic of being on Pride. So let's move on. Anyways, we're already talking about Trump. So I also wanted to touch on media. What media we feel helps, or what media you think inspired or helped move the movement along, or just gave comfort to people.
Well, I guess this is my opportunity. I was thinking about tweeting her this week because, last week we talked about this, how you can't find good news sources, and it's so depressing to look at stuff all the time. And I have become a regular watcher of Ellen.
Uh-huh.
Ellen, is my dose of, and it's usually I'm sitting down to dinner, and she's on, and it's my dose of, there are good people in the world. There is still hope for for corporations that are sponsoring and helping these people out, that she passes it on. But her long history of, back when she came out, she risked everything. She risked her entire career. She was a very famous comedian, and
she lost her show because of it.
Yeah, and kept on trucking, and has done so much good in the world. Has been such an inspiration to so many people for so long. It just, yeah, and she keeps being so good. And it's so funny because back when I used to watch Ally McBeal, and I had such a kind of a crush on Robert Downey Jr. I also had a huge crush on Portia de Rossi,
right?
Who's Ellen's wife.
Right.
It's geez. Oh, it couldn't get better. But I was going to tweet Ellen this week because I want to thank her for being that refuge, that happy place. There will always be something good to see that day when her show's on and I'm feeling down. Even if I haven't... I had that week or so recently where I couldn't even open my email. I was just too anxiety ridden. But I could sit down and watch Ellen and feel a little better for a little while. And when I went to the surgeon to consult last week about my vocal cords,
right,
I had to do this testing with the voice therapist, and it was very traumatic. The realizing how bad it had gotten, being put right there, right, because I had to go from low to high, touch my face and go from a low to high note, or try to, and it would just stop as I tried to go up. And then she had me blowing through a straw, or using a straw like a kazoo,
right,
and trying to go from low to high, and it was and it would just stop. But I ended up coming out in this way where I went and I was crying because I was so upset. So I had tears in my face, but all of a sudden I went, I sound like Dory trying to talk to a whale. And I laughed a little, and the vocal therapist was like, holy cow, I'm gonna have that in my head all day now. So in that traumatic moment, I reached out to Ellen, and it gave me joy. It's pretty meta, but still, I'm gonna tweet at her and thank her for that.
I mentioned at the beginning when I what I called you. That was probably my first real introduction, and it's especially when you know the history of it. I love Rocky Horror Picture Show. I will not go to a Rocky Horror Picture Show with a cast because I love the movie. The first time I saw it live was a play. So it also had Brad's song in it, which is not in the movie. But I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I love because it's a coming of understanding of your sexuality. And he wrote that during a time when he was confused about his own sexuality. And it shouldn't have done anything. It is not a well constructed. It was a decent play, but it's still weird, and not in the like. It is very B movie weird, and that's cool and all, but that's very niche. And then you add musical to that, but that is one that strikes me. Another, and again, it's another play. Unfortunately, I've not seen it live. I've only seen the HBO version, and that's Angels in America. Because, and you can, September, you can vouch for this. We both grew up in the height of the AIDS epidemic, and it was killing people. It killed my favorite singer of all time. And it was killing people left and right. And it was scary. And people were terrified. There was a little boy by the name of Ryan. I think it's Ryan White. He was a hemophiliac that contracted AIDS through a blood transfusion. And the fear that people had about this little boy. And my senator here in North Carolina, there was a bill that was passed to help AIDS victims with treatments and stuff like that. And it was called the Ryan White bill. And the way they had it set up is that it had to be reauthorized every year or 2 years. And I watched the speech with Jesse Helms questioning a little boy's sexuality and why we should be still funding these F words, disease. It made me so angry. So that movie and what it represented, that play and what it represents about the early part of AIDS and what, especially gay men, because this is about gay men, don't get me wrong, but about what gay men had to go through for treatment everything else.
Well, and Rent is another really good, and they did that live version of it recently on television, and it was interesting to see feedback from generation after us that didn't live through any of that and don't really remember, and they didn't even have any context that this happened a lot.
Right.
I have a friend who's a survivor, and he's written some really moving pieces recently about his survivor's guilt, and what that was like, his remembrances of going through that time.
There was again, before it got all weird, MTV used to have this show that I enjoyed for the first 3 seasons, which was The Real World, because it was interesting. In the 3rd season, it was in San Francisco, and they had a gay man there who was HIV positive. And at the reunion show, they brought them back, and it was still very raw because that was probably the worst house before they went to London, because there was so much energy. And there was a guy there by the name of Puck who would constantly pick on and do things to Pedro, who was the gay man with HIV. He would do things because Pedro tried to keep a very clean lifestyle and everything else, because HIV basically makes it harder for you to fight diseases. No one dies from HIV. They die from pneumonia is the big one, but they die from complications. of HIV, and and this guy was just a slob and would do things to make it worse in a lot of respects. And when he passed away, one of the guys who was basically the leader of the house is like, how dare you even be here? When Pedro passed away and I called and let you know, or when when you were notified, I heard you say, I'm glad that bleep, F word is dead. Yeah, it was a horrible time for gay, and again, there were other people that were contracting it. And I remember the Surgeon General at the time. This was also tail end of the Reagan administration, or no, this was the Bush administration at this time, the Bush one, because C. Everett Koop, I think, was Bush's um, Surgeon General, and he would come on morning TV shows, and there was a family that was burned out because they had 3 kids, and all 3 of them got AIDS from. They were all hemophiliacs, and they all 3 got AIDS from transfusions, and they were burnt out of their home. This was in Alabama, which we shouldn't be surprised. It's Alabama, but C. Everett Koop was standing there as a father figure and also a man of science, and said, you know what, if this kid was bleeding, his nose was bleeding, he could still sit on my lap because I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't worry about it. You know, and he was just as disgusted as a man of science about how people were treated with AIDS. And so I think Angels in America, and Angels in America also has a huge thing here in Charlotte. Because of that show, for years, Charlotte lost its arts funding. We used to have one of the best jazz festivals uh, next to New Orleans. We were even better than Atlanta as far as a jazz festival. We used to a jazz and blues festival. Lost it all because the Republicans on the city council got upset that they were doing Angels in America, which has a sex scene of 2 men in a park. And so they basically voted and got rid of all of the arts funding. For years, we didn't have arts funding here in Charlotte. Now, the guy who wrote the play thanked Charlotte's conservatives, because there was also a couple of churches that were being all up in arms about it, of course. And he thanked the city of Charlotte because he hadn't had sellouts like this since he was up in New York, and he appreciated all the free publicity he got. But they got free publicity. The show went through because it has already been funded, but we lost our and there was a play actually written about the controversy here in Charlotte. That Angels of America has a very deep pardon me, a deep residence here in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's one that will always stick with me. And I enjoyed the movie version. Al Pacino was amazing in it, and so was all the other actors and actresses in it. I think it had Meryl Streep in it, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not really sure.
It's on HBO Now or HBO Go if you want to.
I canceled HBO.
Well, that's because Game of Thrones is over.
Just ran out a few days ago. There's a lot of stuff coming up on it, and I didn't finish Chernobyl either.
Oh no, I heard that was really good. I have.
Boy, that was I drank more wine than I intended watching that. That was really traumatic for me too, because it was during that time, and I remember, like,
Yep.
it was very triggering of having grown up during the Cold War.
Yeah, I remember that as well. But what other media, whether music or art or whatever, comes to mind that you feel has helped the agenda or has added comfort to people?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm trying to think what exactly. I mean, because I'd like to turn it to is one of the most moving, amazing things that churches did.
Okay.
Okay. One of the best things I've ever seen in a church in my life was at a Unitarian church in Buffalo, New York, and the AIDS quilt was
Oh yes.
traveling. And those of you who might not know, the AIDS quilt has toured the country many times, but people have made quilt squares in memoriam people they lost to the virus and during the epidemic. And it was in my town, and I lived right around the corner. I walked over there, and I was still. I'm a recovering Catholic, um, but there was a Catholic priest that came to this multi-denominational service for the quilt, and he spoke incredibly eloquently about us all being God's children. And for me, and I had left the church years before that, I was so stunned and shocked. And he was, young and charismatic, and I was like, he's so excommunicated. Like, he's done. Because the Catholic Church still, I mean, this is back in the late 80s, early 90s, still had a very strong stance against the community.
They still do, because I think we weeks ago out a couple
You're breaking up,
bishops.
sweetie.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that there was a couple of bishops that went on Twitter saying that you shouldn't celebrate, any Catholic shouldn't be at a pride event because it's blasphemy to God, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people went out of their way and going, really? You're even going against your own Pope? Just say it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think there are more and more things with the church coming around, and it was a whole bunch of other denominations as well speaking in that time and in support of the community was really, really uplifting to me and gave me hope.
I know that the Anglican Church,
while I was like actively losing people.
I know the Anglican Church is very open. I think they have openly gay and lesbian bishops in the Anglican Church. So churches, there are churches that are being much more, that are realizing, and again, this is something we've talked about in the past, but no one chooses to be gay. You don't wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to like gay men today. You are gay or you're not. You're attracted to men or attracted to women or whatever. You wake up, you don't wake up. Transgender people, how I've had it discussed and heard, is basically, it's a realization, but it's a realization of something they've always known is something's wrong, and they finally realize what it is. It's kind of like you going to the doctor and finding out what's wrong with your throat. You knew there was something wrong with your throat, but until they explained it, then that realization comes to you. So that's
then there's something can be done about it.
Right.
Yeah, that was like revelatory, to be certain.
So but
now this whole thing with, I do want to mention, like, I have people that I dearly love, that are good people, are good Christians or whatever, who I see help people in their time of need and be truly caring, who don't get it. Don't, especially with the trans community, don't get it. Like, can be open and accepting of the rest of the community, but with trans, they're like, nope, it's black and white, penis or vagina. There are two genders. Despite I've tried to talk reason, I'm going to talk to a specific, about a specific person. I will not mention his name. Where it's like, dude, no, you're not a doctor, so you don't realize. And I hear from medical professionals, non-specific genitalia happens way more often than you think it does. This whole idea of two spirits and such has been part of other cultures forever and ever. But he just can't get past it. And I was like, he was up in arms with some kind of right-wing video he was posting around. I was like, please don't. Like they're taking one side of this, like people are treating their children to help them change genders and it's forcing it on them and stuff. I'm like, but I have a friend who is in her 70s that wasn't presenting male enough and was given hormones as a child back in the 50s. This has been going on forever, and the other direction is suppression. Don't act like they're being, victimized. These kids now who are allowed to become who they need to be, as they approach teenage years, and they're getting consultations from therapists and multiple doctors, as well as parents and family, rather than this thing that has been going on since, forever, where, they tried to beat it out of my friend, literally, along with forced testosterone treatments. And I thought I might have gotten through. We just kind of didn't talk on that subject for a while. We disagree on politics a lot, but we're dear friends. I love him. And recently, we were talking about giving blood, because there's a local organization that was like, hey, we should do a blood drive. The bearded and mustache people. I was like, we should do a blood drive. And I was talking about the last time I gave blood. And this friend of mine said he used to give it all the time. And then they asked him if he was given her as a man or a woman today, and he quit and never went back. And I had a hard time with that. I was like, honey, so it's okay, people can suffer and die, because they were trying to reach out just in case, just to give respect, because you might have made a shift. And then we just, went about our business and didn't talk about other stuff. So, but it hurt my soul to think that he just can't take that, this good, kind-hearted, loving man could not take that step to believe something outside of his purview.
It's hard. And here's the thing. Especially in the South, I think more than any place else, it's really hard to break away from our Puritan godliness thing, because that's all we had for any type of social structure, especially in rural areas, for a long, long time. There are still snake handling churches in the state of North Carolina. And here's my thing about that. It's like, well, we handle snakes because we have faith in God. And my thought is, yes, but God also said, don't test him. I just, and he also said, and he also gave us wisdom to understand that handling poisonous snakes and slapping them around is probably not a good idea. Just say it. But going to the Catholic Church only believes in two genders. They haven't gotten to that stage yet. Their homosexuality is basically, you can be in a homosexual relationship, you just can't have sex because you can't procreate. And my theory is like, yes, but it's okay for male-female married couples to have sex if one of them or both of them are sterile. You're okay with them still having sex, right? And they're like, yeah. Then what's your issue? Don't get me wrong. It's a step. It's a step in a positive direction, but it's still really lacking any morals, or any real conviction. It's more of a token kind of situation, I feel, but it's still a step. And if the Catholic Church, which I hope it does, finally shifts fully, I think that's going to be a huge deal in a lot of Christian communities. Now, the Protestant communities that are here in the United States will hold that up, and it's like, see, they don't know God at all, because I was raised Baptist, and Catholics aren't Christian because of the saints thing. That's the big, and Mother Mary. And I don't believe in intercession, but I also don't think it's idolatry. I just think you guys just feel that you need to pray to a saint for extra help, and that's perfectly okay. I personally don't think that's the case, but that's fine. You do you. God, your relationship with God is yours. But when we're talking about God and we're talking about homosexuality, here's the thing. Jesus came down and was with everybody. He hung out with sinners, he hung out with prostitutes, he hung out with women, he hung out with money collectors, he hung out with Romans who were uncircumcised at the time, and he loved them all. If you are a Christian, if you say that I have accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and I have taken that step, then you have to love everybody. You don't have that's not a I try to love everybody. Doesn't mean I have to like everybody, but I try to love everybody. I fail short, but there's a difference. Joe Bob down the street, it's not about love or being Christian. It's just that seeing two men kiss makes him feel weird. And I mean, that's what it is. It makes him feel weird, or maybe he questions his own sexuality. And then he has to go hunt and kill a deer in the middle of the woods to make him feel more manly. I mean, there are several, and I know that's a stereotype as well. But there's a lot of people that want to use Christianity as it's okay to hate people. It's okay that this group of people are wrong or whatever, and that's not the case. That's why I was flipping through several years ago. I was flipping through and I stopped because at the time I didn't know that Kirk Cameron was crazy and gone crazy Christian, and he was talking to gay people about how if they thought they were going to heaven or hell or whatever thing like that, and then well, I was like, yeah, because God loves everybody, stuff like that. And then he comes on, it's like, no, they're going to hell because they're gay. And I'm going, really? Okay, Kurt, all right, let me move on. And so I'm just like, whatever. So no, God loves everybody, and if God, Jesus basically his one rule was kind of covered all of the bases. Um, there are two things you shouldn't do, basically, or there are two things you should do. A, you should love everybody, and B, you shouldn't lie, which is part of love too. George Carlin did this thing where he broke down the 10 Commandments and basically made them one. After he got rid of the first four, which is about God, and talked about which I understand. You could, if you were to take the morality as it is, remove the God parts for the first four, follow the Sabbath, all that kind of stuff, and take the other six. It's basically boils down to just love everybody and be respectful. In other words, don't be a dick. It's not that hard, but it seems to be that way.
Okay, so can we move on? I think we can totally agree that, everybody should love everybody, be excellent to each other.
I do. Be excellent, dudes. Party on, Wayne. So we're going to do carrot and stick at this point. So I am doing carrot and stick. Now, one other thing, real quick. We'll also be posting some things about the history of Pride, the history of the Stonewall riots, and stuff like that. We'll be posting something about that in the links. But it is the 50th year of the Stonewall riots, and a lot of people say that's why we have Pride during this month, which I think is correct. It's not a celebration of the riots per se, but it was the jumping off point for people to stand up and say, hey, I'm gay, I'm out, and here we are. We are here, and you have to pay attention to it. and you can't. We're not going to be in the shadows anymore. So this is the 50th year anniversary of that. So that will. I know Google did a doodle at the beginning of June about that, and there's some articles that have been floating around. We'll be posting those. But let's talk about carrot and stick. And the first one I want to talk.
I will. Hold on. I will put all that stuff on our website and in our show notes, just so everyone knows.
Okay. So, and I appreciate that, September. So the carrot today is both for George Takei and AOC. AOC, I've retweeted this. She tweeted this today of pictures of the first time she was on the border, and her visceral pain that you could see on her face as she's looking at these kids in cages. But George Takei, academics, Jewish people, the Jewish Federation, and everybody else are basically saying that what Trump is doing to the immigrants is concentration camps. There has been so many stories that have come out about how kids are basically having to take care of kids, how there's not any soap or hygiene stuff. There's not any, or any of this kind of stuff. And there's not enough food, not enough water. They're sleeping on floors. This is a concentration camp. George Takei, who was interned as a Japanese American during World War II and wrote a play about this, talks, if anyone can tell you what this is, it would be him. And he's out there on the forefront. Sorry.
I saw an article today from one of our POWs who said the Taliban gave me toothpaste.
Wow, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, all right. So my carrot is that they're making sure the language doesn't get changed. That the language is important. Language is important, and taking away that as a concentration camp and trying to put it as it's a detention center or something like that takes away from the agony and the pain that's going on there. And now, are they putting these kids in showers or ovens? No, they're not doing that. But these are still the Nazis didn't start doing that right away either. Okay, and this is a concentration camp, and we need to understand that. My stick is for the media who's trying to allow this to be watered down by the Trump administration. It's not everybody, and it's not just Fox News as well. Mainstream media is trying to be wishy-washy about it because
I don't know. It was one of the main outlets where I saw the article from our POW saying that. So it was one of the major networks.
That's good. I'm glad
they got to speak up. They have to. It's their job.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I wanted to give another carrot to Lego.
Oh, what did Lego do?
Lego's hosting the world's smallest Pride Parade to honor Stonewall's 50th anniversary.
Okay, so it's a Lego Pride Parade?
It's a Lego Pride Parade. Like Legoland New York has the Discovery Center in Westchester installed a whole Pride Parade in their Miniland exhibit. So it's a miniaturized replica of a New York City built entirely with Legos, and they put a little Pride Parade in it. They took like 25 hours to make this thing. It's got 2 floats. One spells out pride, the other says love. And it's got it's a whole Stonewall 50 mosaic that towers above the show, and a rainbow of patrons from clowns to unicorns waving their pride flags in celebration.
That is amazing. That is so wonderful. I am so.
And they go on. I mean, it's wonderful. They go on about how bricks are all different sizes and colors and shapes, and they want to be, representative for all children to feel included, and everyone has their purpose and their place. And oh my gosh, that made me happy today.
and there are, and I want to say there are several companies that legitimately are celebrating Pride. There are some that are being, doing it to
Talk
court.
about both sides of their mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are others that are being, that are genuine about this, because again, and corporations aren't doing this because it's a noble thing. They see it, and they've done the market research, and they realize that it's the right side of history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that you need to understand is that yes, they're supportive, but it's because they know that they're on the right side of history. If you see people like Nike, or if you see people like Apple, or if you see people like Lego doing this kind of stuff, then you pretty much know that the battle for the most part is already won. We just got to stamp down. That's a bad term. We just need
Oh.
to we just need to educate the dissenting voices.
Yeah. We just lost a bunch of our viewers, and they, I'm sure, went to see Night Attack, which I was trying to get us to wrap up in order to raid. But now we lost the people to do it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. All right. So I guess that is all. So what are we doing in the next couple of weeks, September?
Well, our next show will be following some news, focusing on the primaries. After that, we'll have our quarterly movie look. We're going to talk about Good Omens.
That means I need to watch the TV show and read the book.
Yes, do both.
Yeah, this should be entertaining, and it seems to also focus on Pride. So yeah.
Do you need the book?
I can get a copy.
Okay.
I just need to find time to read it. So, but I'll get it done.
Okay.
All right. So thank you again for joining us at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can also find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page, where $2 a month can help keep us going, and also the bits for Twitch and Twitch Prime is also very helpful as well.
And I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12, and hear me on the Geek Grills and Trust Your Cape podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts.
All right.
And I am going to go ahead and start. I'm going to raid. There's only a couple people left, but
okay.
I'll raid Night Attack. Because I definitely have to go watch Night Attack tonight. I posted about my fundraiser in their Diamond Time, and I'm hoping they mention it, and that might be a big help, because it's my community, man. DCTV.
So what is Night Attack?
Night Attack is a show by the Diamond Club folks. It's a comedy show. Bunch of comedy improv guys. Jerry Brushwood. I've had 2 out of 3 of those, the main folks on it. Not Invisible Wife, but I've had a bunch of them on grills. They're comedians, so it's a lot of improvisational, funny, silly. They're really outrageous. I think you would like them.
All right. You go have fun.
I will.
All right.
Show.